Hello, friends. I am Srikant Ruikar from the Department of English, Vivekanand College, Kolhapur. Today, we are going to study one of the movements which is neoclassicism. In the history of English literature, the period over 100 years from 1660 to 1789 is variously called the classical age or the pseudo-classical age or the age of neoclassicism. It is called classical because the poets of the period suppose that their poetry had the same qualities as the poetry of ancient Greece and Rome, and they were really and correctly following the rules laid down by the ancients. But in reality, the poetry of the period does not have the qualities of classical poetry, nor do the poets really follow the rules of the ancients. In short, the rules are much misunderstood and misinterpreted. In the classical poetry, a harmonious balance was maintained between poetic expression and poetic substance. But in the poetry of this age, too much attention is given to expression at the cost of substance. Hence, the age is not really classical and it is rightly called pseudo classical age or neoclassical age. It is characterized by formal perfection, polish, finish, correctness, objectivity, and predominance of reason as opposed to emotion, observance of the rules of ancient classical writers, lacking in emotion and imagination. Pseudoclassicism is the result of number of factors working together. It is a reaction against the fantastic excesses of the metaphysical, the influence of the French writers and critics, the study of the ancient and great love for them, and the scientific nationalism of the age contributed to the growth of pseudo classicism. The chief characteristics of this school are best represented by its poetry. This movement in English literature was a revival and a restoration of classical learning modes, models, principles, and ideas of art that were prevalent in the classical age of King Augustus. The writers of this age thought that they had achieved perfection in literature and social manners. The writers of this period in England tried to imitate the characteristics of Virgil, Horace, Cicero, and other writers of the age of Augustus Caesar. The main authors in this period were John Dryden, Jonathan Swift, Addison, Richard Steele, Alexander Pope, Lord Chesterfield, Henry Fielding, Dr. Johnson, Oliver Goldsmith, and Gibbon. In literary theory and practice, the most writers of this period were traditionalists and they had a great respect for the classical authors and especially the Romans, who they were believed had established and perfected the principal literary genres for all time. Literature was regarded as an art in which excellence could be attained only by the prolonged study. The approach of these writers was thoroughly professional. They thought that reason and judgment were the most admirable faculties and decorum was essential. In prose as well as in poetry, the most desirable qualities were harmony, proportion, balance, and restraint. Therefore, it follows that the neoclassical writers aimed at correctness. This was nowhere more evident than in their use of heroic couplet. Neoclassicism was both a revolt and a revival. It was a revolt against the Elizabethan Romanticism. It was a revival of the ancient classical spirit of the Greece and Rome. It represented all the qualities attached to classicism, such as restraint, harmony, balance, simplicity, dignity, serenity, repose, reason, preservation, as well as establishment of order, balance, and correctness. Now, let's see the rise of neoclassicism and the reasons. The age of Pope is called the classical or neoclassical or pseudo-classical or false classical age because it was essentially a second hand and a third hand classicism. The writers of this period in England tried to imitate the characteristics of Virgil, Horace, Cicero, and other writers of the age of Augustus Caesar who had themselves imitated the classical Greek writers of a few centuries earlier. There were various reasons for the rise of neoclassicism in the second half of the 17th century. There were excesses of metaphysical qualities, and the followers of John Donne, the poet. Naturally, this led to revolt in favor of order, balance, and sanity in literature. Their use of extravagant hyperboles, far fetched and violent similes and metaphors, and conceits elaborated to a fantastic extent prepared the ground for neoclassicism. Similarly, there was the predominance of French influence, the most important factor in the rise of neoclassicism. The English neoclassicism is of French origin. Charles I had married a French princess who brought not only a colony of courtiers and intellectuals with her, but also the French language too. William Shakespeare and other Elizabethans could not satisfy the popular taste of the age. The French influence prevailed over English literature for over a century. Pascal, Corneille, Racine, Molière, and Boileau were strictly imitated by the neoclassical writers. The works of French writers were characterized by correctness, elegance, finish, formalism, and realism. In France, rigid rules and regulations had already been framed by the French Academy and they were now imported into England. William Shakespeare, Geoffrey Chaucer, and Edmund Spenser were thrown totally. They were neglected. The rise of scientific spirit and the new philosophy with their emphasis on rationalism, reason, clarity, and simplicity in thought and expression, and the avoidance of all that was extravagant also favored the rise of neoclassicism. In the beginning, this neoclassicism was liberal, but with the passing of time, it became more and more rigid. Instead of the rules being followed in the spirit, there was a slavish adherence to the letter, often at the cost of spirit. Now, let's go to the chief characteristics of neoclassicism one by one. The first one is follow nature. The principle follow nature is the very center of neoclassic creed. Nature, however, it is used in a number of senses. It means external reality, which the poet must imitate yes, and to follow the nature becomes a realism or statement. Nature also means general human nature, that qualities which were common to all men in all ages and countries. Thus, the poet must deal with the universal and not with the particular for the singular. It also meant that the qualities of a particular age or sex or profession, then the poet must be true to type. Nature also meant the typical principle or the power that governs the universe. Order, regularity, harmony were supposed to be the qualities of this power, and so literature must also have them. To follow nature also means to follow the rules of the ancient writers because they were based upon nature. Therefore, the ancients must be our study, and the ancients simply methodized nature, and so they must be followed in every aspect. And so the decision was taken by all of them. So, the certain general rules were framed by the classical writers or neoclassical writers. The poetry and other qualities were strictly followed by them, and especially certain other rules for its particular kinds, and artists are expected to write according to those rules. The critics judged works of literature on the basis of these rules, and writers created that basis. The three unities were considered a must for all dramatic writing. Similarly, tragicomedy was condemned as a mongrel breed, that is, it is of uncertain breed, on the ground that Aristotle had prescribed that there should be no mixing of the tragic and the comic. The neoclassicists had no intention of describing flowers and tears and the changes of the season or even of using language of common life. Their only aim was to copy the mien and manners of polite society. Hence, the term follow nature to them meant an exact reproduction of everyday life and manners as opposed to anything wild or extravagant or that existed only in the writer's imagination. The second important characteristic is follow rules. Another slogan of the neoclassicist was follow the rules correctly. The rules which had been laid down by the classic masters as Horace and Aristotle. They were rules which had been interpreted for them by the French writers like Boileau and Rapin. The French influence predominated during this period. The theory of Boileau was widely upheld and recommended as the true test of literature. The artificiality, the polish and refinement of social life infected literature too. Just as a gentleman, we see he must follow the exact rules while wearing his hat or addressing a lady or entering in a room or wearing a wig or offering a snuff box to his friend. These things were very systematically followed, and this formality was very prevalent in this age. So, the writers of the period lost their individuality and became formal and artificial. The general tendency of literature was to look at life critically. The emphasis was on intellect rather than imagination, and a form of a sentence than the content of the sentence. They had a great regard for correctness. They tried to repress emotion and enthusiasm and strictly consent with correct order and their methods of expression. The third important characteristic is imitation of the ancients. The authors of this period turned to great classical writers, in particular to Latin writers, for guidance and inspiration. It was generally believed that the ancients had reached the excellence and the modern poets could do no better than model their writing on classics. In this way, the new classical school of poetry developed. The writers of this period could not soar to great imaginative heights and could not think over human emotions seriously. They directed their attention to the imitation of rules and ignored the importance of subject matter. Now, the fourth important characteristic is intellectual quality. The literature of this period was governed by intellectual quality, which indicated moderation, balance, correctness, reason, and good sense. The artist must strictly follow the rules correctly. Any excessive fancy or emotion must be controlled by reason and good sense. The intellect must govern the heart, and the reason must keep emotion in check. The poets were advised to write about time tested universal truths and general ideas. The writers must say that what they had to say in the best possible manner. The writers of this period cared for form and not for the weight of the matter, the content of the matter. They cared only for manner, for artistic finish and polish, but not for the genuine poetic inspiration and enthusiasm. The content, the thought, and feelings were ignored. Good sense is the main characteristic of the literature of this period. Now, the fifth one is moral bias. According to them, the art must have moral bias. It should teach moral lessons. The didactic function was considered more important than the artistic one. The poet must suitably reward virtue and punish vice and thus maintain a poetic justice. Now we have the sixth one, that is a perfection of language. Much thought was given to style and diction of poetry. It was supposed that there is a difference between the language of prose and the language of poetry. We should be noble and highly elevated and very elegant. Virgil was held out as the ideal, and personification and indirect expressions were strictly restricted. Importance was given to the diction. The common words were avoided. The deities of classical mythology and epithets were also used. Here, epithets means very descriptive words. The use of compound words was so frequent in their writing, there was a rise of artificial use of poetic diction. Now, the next one is a clarity. Besides dignity, they also aimed at clarity, and with this end in view, divided the Gothic words, that is, outdated words, and other Gothic absurdities. The avoidance of the technical words of the arts and the sciences was very important for them. The attention was given to all the minute details. The next one is literature of the town. The literature of this period is strictly confined to the town. The fashionable aristocratic society attracted the poets and writers of this period. Alexander Pope, Addison, Steele, Dr. Johnson, and all other writers of this period dealt with the themes of urban. There was urbanity. It ignored the humble aspects of life and showed no real love for nature, landscape, or countryside. The poetry of this period was a shallow and very superficial. It was neither noble nor inspirational. It was without universal appeal. It was far, far away from Chaucer, Edmund Spenser, William Shakespeare, and John Milton. And the last important characteristic is artificial and conventional style. The poets mainly cared for the form and took all pains to polish and refine the poetic style. It led to the establishment of an artificial and conventional style. The vocabulary was neither colloquial nor technical. The standard poetic diction came into existence. Heroic couplet dominated the poetry of this period. This meter produced a close, clear, and pointed style. Now let's see the very important contribution of the neoclassical writers, especially the major writers. The major prose writers of this age are Daniel Defoe, Addison, Steele, and Jonathan Swift. It is primarily an age of prose. In the field of fiction, the age is very rich and has a great four wheels of fiction, and they are Richardson, Henry Fielding, Smollett, and Sterne. The drama is developed by Addison, Steele, Henry Fielding, Nicholas Rowe, and others. But it is not a brilliant period in English drama. The drama was not really good in that sense. However, in prose, the writers achieved the highest glory. Daniel Defoe, a famous writer who wrote over 200 books and pamphlets. Addison wrote a number of essays, poems, and plays. Alexander Pope is also one of the important writers of this age. He is the beginning and end of classical poetry in English literature. He is probably the greatest poet of the 18th century. The other poets who are Matthew Frere and John Gay. So, friends, in short, I can say that this period is very important in English literature. In short, neoclassicism can be defined as a profound respect of Roman classics thought and way of life, but the writers lacked creativity and imagination. The characteristics like loftiness, grandeur, prosaic, artificial, satire, imitation of ancients, correctness, and elegance of expression, reflection, and philosophical comment on man and his life are some of the important characteristics of neoclassical age. So, friends, uh, this is what I think is all about. We see the neoclassical period, the neoclassicism. So please refer this video again and again and try to understand the important details. Thank you. Thank you all.